out tonight. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, some folks there too. Let's close that door. That's creepy. Right now, down the street, any mover and shaker in this business is watching Thor. They're having the Thor premiere.
Yeah.
And as you can tell, we are here. So
Because we love these people.
I didn't have tickets, did you? Are you going to try to pass it off like I had a show?
I would love to come, Kevin Feige, but no, I got to go do a show with Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I didn't get an invite or anything. I didn't even know what was happening. I pulled up here and I was like, sorry, there was traffic. And they said, us because of the Thor premiere. I was like, no, I would have been invited to that. Apparently not the case. I look forward to seeing it, man. I've heard a few people have seen it and fucking absolutely love it.
Yeah, the junket was yesterday, so a bunch of press saw it, and I hate all of them because I didn't see it.
Oh, you gave up the press, dude.
I did. I chased the glory.
What were you? I've been gone for a week and change. I just got back to Los Angeles about 2 days ago. I went away, went to Florida and did some gigs with Jason and Ralph, and then I went to Jersey for a while, and I went up to New York and had a meeting with BBC America about this potential Sam and Twitch series. So hopefully that gets a little bit closer to happening, knock wood. And then the New York Comic Con was on Thursday. So we did a comic book men panel there and did a bunch of roundtables with press. So I got to see the boys and stuff. And then I did this thing for Amazon. They got a show coming on called Lore. Mm-hmm.
I listened to the podcast.
Aaron Mahnke's podcast. Yeah. They turned it into a TV show. I don't know if anybody knows the podcast like Mark does, but it's called Lore, Lore. And Aaron Mahnke does this kind of deep dive on horror stories and where they came from. So, you know, like, you looking for booze?
Just inspecting the premises.
He's like he does a deep dive on the first American vampire. He does a deep dive on where werewolves come from and stuff like that. And it's pretty fascinating. And they're all based on true stories. So it's not like there was really a werewolf, but there was a person who thought they were, and that's how it began, and the legend began and stuff. So the podcast is pretty popular. It's been around for a while. Gail Ann Hurd turned it into a TV show, and it's going to be on Amazon. And I watched 2 episodes before I did the panel, and I was moderating the panel for him. And I can tell you from the 2 episodes I watched, they were wholly unsettling and unnerving in places. Like so much so that I had to fast forward and do this shit. Like, you know, I know everyone's like, Pennywise and it, he's scary. No, he's not. He's a fucking clown. Like, that doesn't scare me. But they did a segment in the second episode of Lore I watched, which was fucking unnerving. It was entitled Echoes. And it was about Dr. Freeman. I think his name is, I don't know if it's Martin Freeman or William Freeman, but Dr. Freeman is the American...
Bilbo Baggins?
No.
Killing motherfuckers?
He's just taking people out. No, he's the guy that invented the lobotomy. And so they have this they do it with a series of reenactments. It's mixed media. So they do reenactments with like actors, and then they do animation. Aaron does voiceover. They do like vintage footage and stuff like that. So it's really fucking interesting to watch, never boring to watch. And it's never like, it doesn't feel like an anthology necessarily, like an episodic, because yes, there is recreated material, but it's kind of brief in between the other spaces. And the people that get to be in the recreations, pretty huge. Like on the panel was Kristen Bauer von Straten, who's, you know, played Pam on True Blood. The T-1000, Robert Patrick, wow. He was on the panel as well. Holland Roden from Teen Wolf. So they get like really cool people. I saw one with Campbell Scott. He was the father of the first American vampire. That was the story of like some poor farmers, man. Like his whole family had consumption, everyone getting knocked out. And so he had one kid left, and his buddy from down the road was like, you got to talk to this other guy, man. He had the same problem. He could tell you how to fix it. And the dude sits down all serious, and he's just like, it's the devil. And right away, you're like, oh, fuck. So he's trying to convince Campbell Scott's character the only way to save his son is to dig up the dead bodies of his family members and pull their hearts out and fucking burn them. And so, the guy's like, this is ridiculous. But his son's wife's like, you got to give it a shot. Like, we'd hate ourselves if this was the last resort and we didn't try it. And since it's old-timey, it's like 18-something, they do it. Like, they fucking dig up the bodies, and his wife is all, fucking rotted. His other daughter is all rotted. Then the other daughter is kind of fresh-looking. And they're like, hey, man, she's been in the ground 3 months. Clearly, this is the work of the devil. And there's a doctor who's there who's like, no. He's like, her body was frozen during the winter, and then we couldn't bury her until the thaw. So, yeah, she was maintained fairly well, but she'll be rotting soon enough. And they're like, you gonna listen to this medicine man? Cut her fucking heart out. And they she's dead, but they cut her, they violate a grave and violate a corpse, cut her heart out. And the guy says, put it on the fire, and they burn the heart. And then out of nowhere, this guy, sounds like he's making it up as he goes along. He's like, now take the ashes and make a tonic and feed that to your son. So he took the ashes of the heart, put it in some fucking water. Apparently, as a tonic is water and something in it. That's it. So they put ashes in the tonic, just gave this dude like fucking like burnt water to drink. And he drank it, and you're like, oh my God, is it gonna work? And the voiceover is just like, he died 2 weeks later, so it didn't fucking help at all, and the father who'd ever wanted to bring, bury, what do they call it? Disinter his family, had to live with the fucking, why did we do that? But a news item ran. Like in a newspaper, like it memed before there was an internet. Somebody wrote about it going, can you believe these fucking hicks that fucking believe you could cut a dead person's heart out and chase away consumption? What idiots. And it traveled to a bunch of different newspapers, including a newspaper clipping that was found in a notebook of Bram Stoker. What? So this is where the vampire myth comes from. The American vampire myth comes from this story, and it extrapolated over time into, man, they fucking, like, they pop out of coffins and suck your blood and shit like that. But it began with that weird, simple farm incident. So, like, that was episode 1. But episode 2 is about the dude who invents the lobotomy. Apparently, some guy in Germany drilled holes in a fucker's head first, and then they were like, this is inhuman.
Germans.
I know. Then, years later in America, 1960. So this is within spitting distance of when we were born. This guy he's trying to figure out, like, he read an article about modern day Bedlam. Bedlam was the insane asylum in England where apparently they just warehoused human beings. Like, you could pay a penny to walk through and look at people like it was a human zoo and shit like that. They weren't ministering help. They were just warehousing broken people who continued to break even more under those psychotic conditions. So there was an article in Life magazine about a modern day Bedlam in America. So this doctor is like, something has to be done. Like, look at these conditions, these poor people, somebody's got to help them. And that's what Lore is very quick to point out. Aaron points out, he's like, all of these stories are about somebody that really wanted to do good. Like, it's not about somebody who's like, eat that fucker's heart, man. But it was about somebody being like, the only way to save your son from the devil is to do this. And this instance was a doctor who was like, if I can help all these broken people, there must be a way. And he'd read about the brain surgery research, and he had done one where you can open up the cranium and cut this, cord between these two sections, and it makes a person more calm. As we know now, it makes them lobotomized. But that was too long a process. He's like, we can't do it fast enough that way. So he invented the process where they take the fucking hammer, stick it up the eye hole or whatever, and tap, tap, tap until they break through the skull. And it's crazy because he talks about it in his notes. He's going, I understand that medically breaking a brain sounds like the worst thing a doctor could do, but there's no other course of recourse for these people. Like, he actually thought he was helping. And so they depict it in Lore. It's fucking twisted, dude. Like, the dude's sitting there talking to a doctor. The doctor is talking to a woman and a man. And the guy's like, I can't handle her. She's out of control. Like, she won't clean the house, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor's like, it's 1960. The doctor's like, leave her here, go across the street, have some coffee, come back in an hour. And so, he's like, Mrs. Whatever, jump up on the table. And the table's right in his office. And he's playing like this kind of 60s or 50s kind of beboppy music. And so she lays down and he takes out the electroshock. And so first you're like, oh, this is the birth of modern electroshock. That's what this episode's about. But he shocks her and it's fucking unnerving to watch that. And she's just fucking convulsing. And that's when he goes for the lobotomy. So you're like, holy shit. And it's so crimson, dude. You hear the sound. Like if you watch this episode, you will never not hear the sound of a lobotomy again in your life. It was so fucking sickening. I had to pause it and I went and woke Jen up and I was like, get up. You have to see this. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm watching this fucking show for this Amazon panel and they're doing lobotomies. And she's like, fuck off. And she went back to sleep. But she watches all those programs like on fucking Investigation Discovery and shit like Snapped. And this feels like a really classy version of that. Like with good actors.
House almost had a really classy version of Snapped.
Almost, man. She loves that show. It's disturbing. I always walk through the room and she's watching it and shit. And it's always some section of the show where they're like, and that's when she cut her husband's dick off. And I'm like, what are you watching? And she's like, don't ever cheat. And then she goes back to watching the fucking show. So this is kind of like that because those shows are made with reenactments and stuff like that. No interview, no talking head footage on this. No somebody telling you the story. It's done more artistically. So that sequence, man, unnerved me. And then it ends with finally his partner's like, hey man, I went and visited some of our former patients who we think we're helping. And he's like, I don't think this is helping. And it was 1968, I guess Thorazine was invented. And suddenly a pill changed everything. Like they could give a pill to somebody who was psychotic and it would calm them without having to do a fucking lobotomy. So his buddy's like, we got to put these lobotomies to the side. Like maybe it's time to stop this. And the emergence of Thorazine is probably, let's use that as a good excuse to get out of the fucking lobotomy business. And his partner's just like, I stand by our work. It's important. Like he believed he was helping people. And the last sequence they show is a woman sitting there talking to him, and it shows 1968. And she's like, I can't get him to do anything. He's constantly loud and stuff. I can't take it anymore. And I heard that about this procedure. And so what can you do for us? And then the doctor goes, you know what? There's a coffee shop across the street. Just go there. Come back in an hour. And she's like, okay. And she leaves. And then they fucking cut to the person in the chair, and it was a fucking 5-year-old kid. And he's like, get up on the table. And that's how the episode fucking ends. And then finally, he stopped. It was terrifying, dude. Really, and it's all based on fucking reality. So I had to do that panel, and all I did was bitch for 20 minutes about you fuckers. I'm gonna live with this shit for the rest of my life. But it's a wonderful, wonderful show. I think it starts soon on Amazon, man. And if you're into creepy shit, give it a fucking watch. So I did that panel, and then Friday I went to Atlanta and did a show, and then Saturday I came back to New York Comic Con and did a live show where I interviewed people for IMDb. So I got to talk to the cast of The Tick, the cast of Walking Dead, the cast of American Gods, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Joe Quesada, Angela Robinson, who made that movie, which I really want to see, comes out this week. Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman, about the creation of Wonder Woman, the guy who created Wonder Woman and the women who helped him create Wonder Woman. So interviewed her as well. So it was really good, man. It was like being there at the Comic-Con was a lot of fun. Javits Center is packed as fuck and shit like that. They had I think at Madison Square Garden, they did a Walking Dead screening, and Hardwick did Talking Dead afterwards. I think they're doing it here this week too, outdoors at the Greek or something. For the 100th episode of Walking Dead, they're doing an outdoor screening, and then Chris is doing Talking Dead afterwards. So that was on Saturday. Sunday, I went to Nashville and did a show at the Ryman Auditorium. And the Ryman Auditorium, if you're unfamiliar with it, is where they used to host the Grand Ole Opry.
Do they have both kinds of music, country and western?
Country and western. Oh my God, yes. My father was a big country and western fan, which baffled us for years because we're from New Jersey and we're not even from South Jersey where it might have made sense or something like that. But he just fucking loved country music. And when we were kids, he took us to the Grand Ole Opry. It was like his temple. The same way when I was a kid, I wanted to go to Grauman's Chinese Theater, or as an adult, I wanted to go to the Northlands Coliseum where the Edmonton Oilers played, or, stuff like that. That was his shrine, his temple. And so when I was 5, he took us on a family vacation there, and like I remember there was an opportunity for kids to get on the stage. You go up on the stage if you were a kid. So he's like, "You're going," and he accompanied me up on the stage because he wanted to be there, as were all his heroes used to sing and shit like that. My old man like worked for the post office and shit. We're always real proud of him because he never fucking killed anybody or anything like that. And on the weekends, like he wasn't this guy. He wasn't like way communicative. My sister says I stole Silent Bob from him because he never said anything until he had the right thing to say or something funny to say, and then he fucked off into the back, into the darkness again and shit. So he was never that guy in terms of chit chatting about what was I hit a pothole. What was I just talking about? The Ryman.
Yes.
Thank you. I was like, I got lost in a dad hole, which sounds dirtier than I meant it.
Now that club's 2 doors down.
Dad hole's over there. When he would on the weekends, he would go into his room and play his records, his country records, and sing. And my father was not that guy. He was never a singer. He was never like a show off of any kind and stuff. So, I always felt like it's so weird. Like that, who is that guy that goes in there and sings? But that was my real father. I met the guy who had to put on, it'd be like, I'm your dad. You do what I say and shit like that. But he'd go in that room, listen to that music. That was where he'd cut loose. Same way when I drive around, listen to music, free fall, like Tom Cruise and shit, and Jerry Maguire. That was what my dad would do in that room. So he loved the Ryman, and so I'd been doing gigs at the Ryman, at Zanies in Nashville. And Ralphie May, who just passed away this week as well, I'd met him on a plane. He was like, "Hey man, they're gonna let you fly. That means they'll let me fly too." And he was the first person that ever gave me a weed edible. I was a smoker, but I'd never had an edible. And he's like, "Take this, man." He's like, "You got any weed?" I said, "No." He goes, "Then take this." And he gave me a lollipop. I said, "What's this?" He's like, "You suck it, it'll get you high." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, or you want it to work fast, shove it up your ass." And I'd never done an edible, so I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "I'm just fucking around, don't do that." He goes, "Unless it makes you come hard." He was funny. So when I did gigs at Zanies in Nashville, he would pop backstage and chit-chat and stuff. And so I told him about my dad and the Ryman. He's like, "Well, shit, you should play the Ryman." I was like, "Well, I'm not a fucking country star. I would have to go back in time, have bad shit happen to me, and start writing songs and whatnot." And he said, "No, I played the Ryman." He's like, "The comedians do it all the time. You could play the Ryman Auditorium." So I was like, "Oh, fuck, I got to do that for my dad." One of the last pictures he ever took in his life, he's standing on the stage of the Ryman. He won some online contest, and he took my mom to Nashville, and they got to stand on the stage, take pictures for some fan fest. So I was like, I could close some loop, man. Like I could stand in the same place my dad stood once, and my dad's hero, Hank Williams, stood. And I stood 42 years ago when I was a kid going, "Why are we up here?" And so I finally did that gig last night, and it was fucking magical, dude. It was pretty amazing. My father had been dead like 13 years, but I'm pretty sure we had him in the room. I'm not a spiritual cat, even though I made Dogma. But dead is dead. That's that, what do they say on fucking, on Game of Thrones? What is dead may never die again, or whatever the fuck.
Well done.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm not that guy that's like, I feel my father. But in that room, like I said, "Hey man, my dad's favorite artist was Hank Williams." Like, and here I am on the stage where Hank Williams sang, and my father listened to albums of Hank Williams singing on the stage. I was like, he's not here. He would have loved this because Mo Man loved when I did Q&A and shit. So I was like, I'm not gonna sing a whole fucking song because I'm not a singer. I said, but I'm gonna sing a few bars of "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," and you guys come in at the end and stuff. So on that stage where legends have fucking sang, and I have no business being up there singing, I took a moment to sing for my old man, and everyone joined in for the chorus line, of course. And for a minute, dude, it's not like I saw him winking at me, not at all. My mom was there, she winked at me. She was like, "Oh, Tiger." But I felt like if there is something after this, maybe that brought him back for a second to be like, "Oh shit, he remembers, how good." So it was beautiful. It was a fantastic night for me. And then I came the fuck home so I can hang out with you.
Hey.
What have you been up to? Where were you?
Now I gotta fucking follow that, right? Like it's like, oh, James Brown was just on the stage, and here I am. I play the ukulele.
Next time you go first.
I was in Massachusetts, in the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, on the set of Castle Rock, on the set of the episode of Castle Rock.
Oh.
Which,
I was sitting there going, a black man in Massachusetts?
You know, I
There was
said
a
that to
reason.
myself more than once. What? Hey.
So wait, how was it? You visited the set of Castle Rock.
I visited.
Mark, for those that don't follow that closely, wrote Castle Rock this year.
I was on the writing staff of Castle Rock, and so the episode that I wrote was the 5th in the run, and that's what they were in the middle of production on when I went up there. And it is my second TV writing job. It is the first time I've been on the set of a show that I wrote. Literally like words that I wrote, dialogue that I wrote, and then watching Andre Holland and Melanie Linsky and Scott Glenn decide not to say them.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm standing there and the director.
It was such a great story, man. I was like, how awesome for
It
you.
was almost great. But so Kevin Hooks was the director of this episode. Kevin Hooks from The White Shadow.
Yeah,
from
great
Sonder.
director, yeah.
The dude has been directing TV for like 30 years, but he was a director. And so we're gonna rehearse this, and Bill Skarsgård was on set, Pennywise, who's in the show, and Scott Glenn, we're gonna have the scene. Scott Glenn comes in. I'm not gonna say any of these fucking lines. Scott, this is the writer, Mark. Hi. All right, I'm not saying these fucking lines.
I don't blame you, Mr. Glenn.
These are shit. He's like, because I think this, you want a Scott Glenn moment. I don't do Scott Glenn moments. I do Alan Pangborn moments. I do character moments. I'm here for the show, not for me.
Did you want a Scott Glenn
I
moment?
don't even know what that is. I mean,
But
crackly
it's-
white dude. That's what I was after.
So you don't bring it up. There's no way. You're not in the position to be like, hey, man, do the words.
Except that you kind of sort of are. Like when you're the writer on set, you're the representative of the producers. I technically carry the weight of the showrunners when I'm on set.
Really?
That's the way it's supposed to go. Instead, I decided to say, which rather than get in a knife fight with a knife fighter, I decided to say, okay, well, Scott, here's the thing. We need this bit for the plot. We need this bit for the emotion. However you want to get there, get there.
You can give him the pertinent information that he's got to get across in the scene. Juxtapose it any way you
You
want.
have to get this, you got to get this. Everything else is just tap dancing, so go for it. And he went for it, and we got it. And I think he was willing to parlay as long as parlay was on the table. But it was the most surreal thing I've ever done. Is to remember like being in a room with 8 other people, just thinking shit up, and then 6 months later being on set in the middle of Massachusetts and 2:00 in the morning, making people say shit that I wrote.
It's a unique feeling,
It
isn't
really
it?
is. I was praying that Andre Holland was not looking over at me as I was crying gently in the director's chair. Like, no, go ahead, you guys. I need a smoothie. Is there a smoothie guy here? There's a fucking smoothie guy here. Thank you, smoothie guy.
Were they tears of what, joy?
Yeah, like
Not tears of fear of Scott Glenn.
No, they're different fluids from Fear for Scott. But no, I've been wanting to do this, man, since I was like 15 years old.
It was a huge moment for
It
you.
was an amazing.
Regardless of the fact that Scott Glenn was like, hey, man,
He's a lovely, lovely gunslinger.
you watched your words come to life.
Yeah, for 3 days. I get to and apologize to everyone for it because we were doing night shoots.
Oh,
and there's
sure.
100 people on a set, and they're all fucking. And the cold snap of Massachusetts winter was kicking in, so it was like 40 degrees at night. It's 3:00 in the morning. Bees tried to kill people, and they're just like, we had like a bee attack. Like 8 people got stung by 40 bees.
Really?
Yeah, like angry fucking New England bees. It's like, we're about to die, and
That's a thing?
that's a fucking thing.
When we were kids, man, remember they had us terrified of the killer bees that were supposed to be coming?
Yes, Africanized killer bees.
What was...
Because that's how you get people scared. You make it black.
Is that right?
Yeah, they were from Africa. You don't get Africanized. What the fuck is that? It's not like a drink you can drink and suddenly you're black. Africanized bees.
Were they called Africanized bees?
Yeah,
So who did that?
white people.
Really? That's so fucked up.
And not you. I mean, this guy's on board, but
That's fucked up. I never heard that before.
yeah, no, it's fun.
I'm gonna look that up, man. That's fucking crazy. Okay, so,
So I did
these
that.
were not Africanized bees.
These were just pissed off Massachusetts bees.
All right.
Because again, black people.
Yeah, man. I guess that happens if you're gonna shoot outside. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're gonna have to deal with the elements and insects and whatnot.
It was, but it was a magical. Like you never forget your first time. So that was my first time.
I remember wasn't my first time, but I remember one time where I was asking somebody to say words and that I'd written, and I was I hit look at that, right?
Wow. Is there like a bar fairy who just brought me a rocks glass with ice?
Well, they didn't want you to drink it straight out the bottle, so.
Well, that's what happened last time. Hello.
Where was I? I was shooting Jersey Girl, and I was talking to Mr. Will Smith, who was playing himself in the movie, and giving him a line reading on something that I'd written. And I was like, oh, no, you got to say it like this. And he looked at me and he goes, and I was like, right, you would say it anyway you would say it because it's you saying it. Right, my bad. So, all right, so that was cool. 3 days?
3 days, and then I drove down to New York for New York Comic Con, where I spent all of 4 hours on the floor, which was lovely.
Did you see anything beyond the floor? See a panel or anything?
Sunday was the Castle Rock panel. So all the people that I saw on the set had flown, because they're fancier than I am, down to New York for the panel, for the hour that they get to say nothing in front of everybody, because they can't say anything. It's a fucking J.J. Abrams joint. So it's much.
Everything's on lockdown.
Yes. What's it about? Can't tell you that. Is there supernatural? Can't tell you that. Hey, is he playing Pennywise? Can't tell you that. It's just, yeah, lots of questions without answers.
Who was the moderator?
Marissa Rothman from TV Guide.
That'd be a tough job, man.
Yeah.
Keep that going for an hour.
Yeah, good luck. But we showed the trailer, the first trailer for the season.
How's it look? Can you see it online? Is it up
I
already?
watched that show. Yeah, no, it dropped just after the trailer. And it's spooky. It's fucking ethereal, which was the whole plan. Especially since we can't say anything about what the show is.
But we know he ain't playing Pennywise. There's no way on earth he's playing Pennywise.
I mean, I don't know what's happening in episode 10.
You can play that game?
I am going to be 100% candid and say I don't know how this show ends.
Really?
Yeah. My friend Derek is out there. He's a TV writer. He feels the pain of like, oh, you were on staff for like 20 weeks, and then they had to figure out the whole show, and then you left, and then it's gonna be a surprise for everybody.
That's gonna be fun then for you, man.
I know half of what happened. And then I get to explain to the actors, so where does this go? Fuck if I know. Good luck.
What do we got on the docket today?
There's a trailer that dropped yesterday. I was 3,000 feet above the ground flying from New York to LA, and I paid for the fucking internet on the flight so that
you could. How could you watch it? Because YouTube, you could actually stream,
like
or on Twitter as well, I guess, because they loaded.
Once it aired on the god awful football game, it then became free to the internet. So yeah, we saw a trailer yesterday.
Closer. There you go.
That high?
Yeah. And what'd you think? I went online and watched it on Facebook, and everybody knows what I think. I was fucking thrilled by it, man. The one thing I can't get over, though, is the fat ats, the ones that are like, they've got the bent arms. I call them fat ats because they look like fat dudes doing push-ups. They're like this. So instead of being like this, what do you think that's about?
I love that they've evolved from being elephants to like giant primates.
Yeah.
Like they're scaling up on the evolutionary ladder.
Do you think that is meant for climbing, or do you think it's meant to be like, if we have them like this, you can't fly under us anymore, Luke Skywalker, or something like that?
If I'm sitting on a hill and I see fucking fat ats climbing up a mountain at me, shit, damn.
But why any more than the AT-AT? Like, why would you be scared? Like, holy shit, options! Like, why would you be scared?
Climbing at me. I thought I was cool on flat surfaces, but now this motherfucker's
You think that's going to be... Did you see any of them scale things?
No, but you just brought it up. Now I'm a fan.
Because you said it.
I said monkey. You said...
You said primate.
Yeah.
So we're just fan fictioning it at this point. We don't even know what these fucking things can do.
Just like Ryan Johnson. We're just fan fictioning at this point. It's so telling looking at that trailer and the Justice League trailer, which dropped like a day before that.
I know. Just when Warner Brothers like, right on, we got a little traction with our movie. Disney's like, look at our big Star Wars dick.
Here's my fat at right.
All the Justice League popping up behind it, going, remember us?
We got a movie too.
What just happened?
It's like Warner Brothers forgot how to sell movies.
Explain.
One of my favorite trailers the last 10 years is the Man of Steel trailer. The very first Man of Steel trailer.
Yeah.
When it's just Clark, he's on a windswept tableau, and you hear like Russell Crowe.
When we were all like, these movies are going to be good.
Awesome. Christopher Nolan's got something to do with these, and Zack Snyder's fine too.
Yeah.
And the voiceover is something like, "They will join you in the sun. Don't be afraid, Clark. They will hesitate. They will fall. They
There's
will
that
stumble."
Russell Crowe voiceover. Yeah.
And it's like, I believe this man can fly. Like, they did their job. They sold me on a new Superman movie. And now you flash forward almost 10 years, and it's, the sky is red, and bad wisecracks, and God, I hope that Aquaman is cool, because this movie really wants me to think he's cool. And why is the Flash looking like that? And I don't understand any of what's happening. And then the Last Jedi.
I want your trailer commentaries from now on.
I can't understand any of this. And then Last Jedi comes out and gives me almost no plot. It's not about plot at all. They're selling me the mood of Star Wars.
Yes.
What it feels to be.
That's a good point. I don't even know what the plot of the movie is
No
yet.
clue. Like, you get little like hints of like, oh shit, well, The Last Jedi is clearly Luke, because that's what Ryan Johnson told us. But
He just tweeted that.
he did. Who's the Last
Vanity
Jedi?
Fair was like, who is the Last Jedi? And he just wrote, it's Luke. It's got like 10,000 likes because people are like, yeah, man.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, it
It's also, and then people online were like, they've said it throughout the movies. Like at one point, Yoda's like, you know, when I'm dead, the Last Jedi, I can't do that shit. But he says, like, when I'm dead, you're going to be the Last Jedi. And then
I
in
love
one
how
of
he goes from Kermit to Fozzie. When I'm dead, he's the Last Jedi. Dr. Teeth and the Jedi Mayhem.
I was going for more Ralph than anything else, Ralph the dog. And then in the role, the front, role, one of them says something about the Last Jedi and stuff.
I mean, it's in the Force Awakens scroll. It's like,
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
has seen Luke Skywalker, ... The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But yeah, it evokes so much Star Wars while also giving you some new shit and then giving you all the stuff you want. And hey, it's a fucking robot hand and a lightsaber. And hey, we're talking about the Force, and I've never sensed anybody as powerful as you.
Yeah, watching him get scared is cool because you're like, oh shit, if Luke's scared, we should all be scared.
Right. I mean, there's a little bit of an Empire vibe to it, in that it's clear that a decent chunk of this movie is going to be Rey and Luke. Luke training Rey fucking up and leaving too early, because that's how this goes.
Is that what you got from that?
That's kind of what I got from that. And then there's other shit that's happening in the galaxy.
Are you shitting me? I would think that would be awesome if she did the same fucking thing he did, and then he could literally be like, "Oh, when I was your age," and in the audience we could be like, "We saw it!" Like that'd be amazing. So if we could back him up and shit, she wouldn't hear us, but whatever. I like that. I hope that's what happens. I didn't get that from the trailer at all, though. Really, I know this much. I bet my life on this. Well, maybe not my life because I'm wrong. Some motherfucker will shoot me. But I'll put $100 on the fact that the last two shots in the trailer are not connected. Where he's, she's like, help me. And then they cut to him and he's putting his hand out. No. Bullshit. There ain't no fire behind her or anything like that. They're two different places. But I do think they are telling the truth about the moment with Kylo Ren in the Darth Vader looking TIE fighter about to shoot Princess Leia. That, oh my God. I mean, look, it was heartbreaking and wonderful to see Carrie back and stuff. But, in that moment, that's a Princess Leia moment to me.
Yeah.
And if that's how they figure out, like, how to go out with the character, like, that just makes Kylo Ren the most hateable fucker in the world since Joffrey. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hated it.
Just really hate the fucker because he took out two of our childhood favorites and shit. And, and then maybe if fucking Luke kills him, it's all good.
Yeah.
In the third one, who knows? I'm sure they got writers working.
Well, he's not going to die.
Luke?
Kylo.
Why?
Because if Star Wars is about anything, it's about redemption. It's about clawing somebody back from the abyss. The whole fucking first 6 movies are about saving Darth Vader. It's about the fall and rise of a man.
Right.
I don't see a world in which you let Luke Skywalker's son, as bad as he is, be killed by, Han Solo's son, Luke Skywalker's nephew.
I was like, what the fuck do you know?
Miss. I know, guy. But yeah, this is a saga about redemption. It's a saga about saving people. It's a saga about not letting go of hope.
Right.
And so I don't see a world in which we kill Kylo Ren. That's just
ever?
No. Well, I mean, old age maybe.
Does he doesn't
Bad
fucking,
email.
nobody makes him pay for the murder of Han Solo?
I mean, he'll die, but not because somebody kills him. He'll sacrifice himself in the same way that Darth Vader dies, but not because he gets killed, but because he gives himself. I'm sorry, did I spoil something for somebody? Well, you motherfucker, I haven't seen these movies yet.
I liked the trailer quite a bit, and you're right. I still don't really know what's going on in the story.
No, but it makes me want to see it.
Yeah.
Which, the Justice League trailer did not really do.
I keep watching the Justice League trailer because I know
Does it get
sooner
better
or
the
later,
more you watch?
yeah, sooner or later, it's gonna make me go like, fuck yeah. I'm in. Like they got my money. I'm going regardless and stuff. But
just
it
keep
seemed
waiting
like
for
the
the-
same trailer. I didn't.
Yeah, I just keep waiting for the Justice.
People here. This is what I remember. People smiled more in this trailer. There's like a couple shots like where they intentionally like, look, people will smile. You will believe a man can smile. And they'll cut to like the Flash smiles and Wonder Woman smiles. Batman, I think, kind of smiles at one point and shit like that. Everybody got a smile going and stuff. Clark smiles, Lois smiles. It's all fucking smiles, man. So Justice laughs of America.
I love that they're still hiding the fact that Superman is in this movie.
Yeah, but I thought it was a classy sell in the trailer where they're like, hey, we're not saying Superman's back, but Clark is in her dreams and shit like that. It's a good way to say he's going to be there without fucking saying.
But we all know he's going to be there.
Some people don't. Like, my mom wouldn't know. So she could go into that movie and be like, oh, Tiger, Superman's back from the dead. You know? But yeah, you're probably right. They should at this point. And that was the last trailer, they're saying.
Probably. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of TV spots in which they will show Superman.
You think so?
Yeah.
Where they're like, here he is, please give us your money.
Yeah. They'll just see the cape flapping and that'll be it.
I'm in. When is it? November?
Yes.
And then Star Wars is December?
When is it? November 7th? 3 days after the 4th? When is Thor out? Thor's out the 3rd.
So wait, Thor comes out and then what?
1/7. They get 2 weeks. They get 2 weeks.
Thor does?
Thor gets 2 weeks.
And then Justice League comes
shows
out?
up.
And all reports of Thor are amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's going to hurt it at the box office.
No.
All right. What else we got? What's next?
Well, The Punisher was supposed to have a big panel, la-di-da, at New York Comic Con.
They were, and then the events in Las Vegas changed that.
Yeah. And it also, Marvel was doing a licensed comic book with Grumman, the people who make airplanes, and also lots and lots of guns. And it seems as if people kind of twitched to the fact that maybe doing a Marvel comic book glorifying firearms was not the jam at the moment. And
I can see the temptation, right? With like, well, Tony
Punisher.
Stark makes weapons.
Yeah. So it is entirely possible that
Oh, it wasn't Punisher. It was Avengers.
was it Avengers? I thought it was
Yeah.
Punisher.
No, you're on two different stories. They stopped the Avengers panel because of the Las Vegas shooting. And the book was an Avengers crossed over with that company, and they had their own superheroes and shit like that. And that was their point. They're like, well, it made sense to us because Tony Stark makes weapons and they make weapons, but now we see that everyone's mad, so sorry.
Yeah. It does make me wonder if they will stall the release of The Punisher a little bit. Because there was talk that it would be out for Veterans Day, I believe, which is November, which makes all the sense in the world. It's fucking Frank Castle.
Yeah.
You know, veteran of all veterans. But I get the feeling that they might push it, if I was them, until next year.
Probably. I mean, they get away with it. It's not like it's gonna, like people are being like, I'm not interested anymore. Like, and sadly though, the way the news cycle goes, something is going to happen this week, and people will probably be like, oh yeah, Las Vegas, didn't that happen? Worst shooting in American history. Fuck, what a horrible time to be alive it is, man. A couple of years ago, I felt like this is the greatest time in the world to be alive. And this is not a Trump statement at all. And I'm not saying like under Obama it was great, but a few years ago, I didn't feel this impending sense of dread and, you know, wondering if like,
Waking up every morning?
yeah, if there is going to be a nuclear war again, like it's fucking crazy, man. Not again, we've never had a nuclear war, but I had fears when I was a kid.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, I don't. You weren't there that day. Oh, that was the day after. My bad. But I had fears as a kid, and now they're kind of back and shit like that. The news is just fucking so shitty. So more pop culture. What's next? Fuck. I just want to hide in the ass of this shit.
I saw Blade Runner 2049.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a commitment of time. That's almost 3 hours.
it
I
really
saw.
was. Did anybody else see it? Did you guys like it? You saw it twice. Wow, what could you have been doing with those 5 hours instead of seeing Blade Runner twice? I liked it. I love Denis Villeneuve.
I love him as well.
I think
I loved Arrival.
Arrival is one of the best movies in the last 10
What
years.
was it? Prisoners?
Prisoners, Sicario.
And Sicario. But Arrival is fucking genius, man.
I mean, I love Michael Green, the dude who co-wrote it with Hampton Fancher, who did
Yeah.
Logan and has Murder on the Orient Express later, like next month.
He's got a huge year.
He's got the fucking year of all years. The movie, to me, it's weird because it's basically about a bunch of Pinocchios who wish they were real boys,
Okay.
which is really interesting, but kind of dramatically sterile. You know, like nobody is really alive in this movie. Like everybody's kind of acting behind these sort of veneers of either I'm not a real person, or I am Jared Leto, or I am some kind of AI fucking construct. It is not until Harrison Ford shows up 20 minutes before the end of the movie where it's like, oh, fuck, that's right. That's what a human being is like on screen. That's what it's like to see somebody who wants something and who is feeling it and you're seeing it on his face. I think it's an amazing exercise in something that is not, even at its zenith, that fulfilling. But I think it's an amazingly done movie. Like, it's beautiful to look at. You know, it is the movie, it's the best version of this movie was going to be. But I've also talked about how I don't love the first Blade Runner.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie I respect more than enjoy. It's not like, let's fucking get high and watch Blade Runner. That's a celebration of life. Here's my big question. I'll see the movie, but this will be spoilers, so if you don't want to know this, don't know it. Do they reveal if Deckard was a replicant or not? Because They do.
They do. They make a very...
All right, shut up.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do.
No, he's saying they reveal. He's not saying what the reveal is.
They reveal it. They absolutely tell you what he is. Hold on.
Oh, wait. That's coming from people who saw the movie.
Did I not miss the whole point that the child that they're looking for is a hybrid between a replicant and a human?
Fucking spoilers, man.
Said spoilers. You gave the
That's
warning.
an awfully big one.
You fucking shot this flare up in the sky.
I didn't see that shit on the fucking tagline. Yeah, right?
So that's
You think you know a guy.
And if Rachel is this child's mother and she's the replicant, then if it's a hybrid, then the other parent has to be human. Yeah, they did. Yeah, this is the fucking magic. This is how this works. It's human DNA and replicant DNA, and we got a replicant to give birth to a baby. That's what did I not see the same movies y'all motherfuckers?
I'm just waiting.
I gave 2.5 hours to it, I'm pretty sure.
How did they handle Rachel?
Lots of archival footage until they get like some ridiculously convincing body double towards the end. Like
Oh, so they represent her.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You might actually. How come they didn't show that in the trailers or anything?
Because that would be a big spoiler.
Oh, is it a big?
Like I just
fucking
did.
yeah. Well done. All right, I will see it. I don't know if I'm going to go to the theater though. That's a long sit, man.
It's a long sit, but I mean, it's worth it for the theater because it's so fucking pretty.
That's true. Maybe I'll go for that. It's what's his name? Who shot it?
Roger Deakins.
This is the year he might actually win too.
I mean,
Academy Award.
it's
He's never won one before, even though he's a genius.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? You sold me. I'll go see it in the theater for Deakins, man. See it on the big
Go do
screen.
it. Give it up. Apple is close to a deal on making a new Amazing Stories TV show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the old '80s Steven Spielberg chestnut,
Yeah.
anthology. Brian Fuller is apparently going to be executive producing it.
Good choice.
Did you ever watch that show as a kid? Amazing Stories. Did
what
you
is?
ever watch it?
Did I watch Amazing Stories? Hey, I was just thinking of anthologies at this point, man. Anthologies are fucking huge, and I think they're easier to kind of.
Did it go out? Yeah, you have this.
Man down. Wait, where was I? What was I just talking about? Anthology. I think they're easier to digest than like a binge watch of a show that's like, now you got to watch the next episode because it's all connected and stuff. So I think like for a while, nobody wanted to do anthology. Like anthology's fucking dead. But I think like thanks to shows like Black Mirror, it's back in a big bad way. That's what Lore is set up as an anthology as well. Because you can sit and think about it. When you're in a 10, 12 episode binge, life fucking stops. You don't shower. Everything's terrible. But with an episode, like with an anthology, you can watch one, fuck off, and then the next one's completely different anyway and stuff like that. I could see that working. Did your mic start working yet or no? Oh, shit. All right, back to you.
Thanks, Chip, in traffic. Let's see. Hey, you know, there was supposed to be a dark universe of movies that Universal was doing? Yes. Universal has very quietly pulled Bride of Frankenstein off the release schedule. Yeah.
So the dark universe just got real dark?
Yeah. Universal's statement was this kind of bullshit. After thoughtful consideration, Universal Pictures and director Bill Condon have decided to postpone Bride of Frankenstein. None of us want to move too quickly to meet a release date when we know this special movie needs more time to come together.
Oh my God, man. That's grade A bullshit right there.
Yeah, no,
It's a very special movie.
they slung it something fierce.
Well, I think that has everything to do with how crazy well The Mummy did.
What would you take away if I do?
What was the movie before The Mummy? Dracula something?
Dracula Untold.
And now this, like, nobody seems to really give a shit, really. Like, it seems like and if you're gonna do the Universal Monsters, like, do the Universal Monsters. Like, they did a Mummy movie that was like, Tom Cruise is not the Mummy. Like, and the movie became all about him and shit like that. So, I don't know. I do think you could make cool movies of these characters. I just think these attempts have been fucking unnecessarily huge and expensive, and I know they're trying to make tentpole movies, but I don't think you need to go that far. Maybe it's best they let it rest for a minute or so. But remember how they were selling it so hardcore, where they had all the stars get together and take that picture and stuff like that?
Well, I don't think they were together. I think it's one of those Photoshop Jamie Jams where it's like, we're not going to get Javier Bardem and Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp is in fucking Vienna shooting a Murder on the Orient Express movie. Now we're going to cut and paste these motherfuckers in the same frame.
I totally believed it. I was like, look at this. They all got together in one room. This movie must be special, I said. Who knew? All right, so that's sad. What's next?
Well, we could talk about Westworld Season 2. Do you guys care about Westworld Season 2? Yeah, fuck yeah, I do. For Season 2, they're teasing the showrunners, Jonah Nolan and his wife Lisa Joy, that we will see Roman world and medieval world in Season 2.
Roman and what?
Medieval.
I thought you said evil world. I was like, what, hell? That'd be amazing, man. All right, so Roman world and medieval world.
And they had teased...
What about Shogun world? We saw that in the
they
last
teased like Samurai Planet or whatever that was at the very tail end of the first season. But that's all that I have from fucking Westworld news.
That show looks fucking expensive.
They're spending all of HBO's money.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the ones the Dragons aren't spending, they're spending it on Westworld.
I was going to say, man, I was certain. Did we look What the fuck is going on, JC? Please, Jesus Christ!
Son of a... What?
It was a glass here.
Oh.
Okay, what else?
That's all we got news-wise, man.
That's the news?
That's the news that's fit to print.
That's all the news, folks. That means we turn to you guys for the content. Hands in the air, waving like you just don't care. Starting right there.
Please disregard if you guys had talked about this, but how do you feel about Sci-Fi picking up the pilot for Deadly Class by the Russo Brothers?
How do we feel about Sci-Fi picking up Deadly Class?
Yeah, Rick Remender's comic book.
So
Yes.
the Russo brothers of Avengers movies fame are producing a TV version of Deadly Class?
Which is like a boarding school for assassins.
And it's a book? Is it a... Okay, and so they're... And when did they announce this? Shit. Well, you know what? You're fired. You're my new partner.
This has been really great, you guys. You just have to pretend to be a black guy for the rest of your life.
So that's going to be Sci-Fi? So now Sci-Fi has that show and Magicians.
Happy.
Happy's coming, and Krypton's coming, isn't it?
Right.
That's a full slate, man.
They are trying to be the CW they should have been 10 years ago.
Their new manifest, that's funny. Their new manifest is it's a fan thing. That's
Right.
we're fan oriented.
Because fans don't want like wrestling.
Were they running wrestling on?
Yeah, they were wrestling. They had a cooking show once. It was like Molecular Kitchen or some shit like that. Because they thought that, I mean, nerds like to eat. Why don't we have a cooking show? They don't like to watch it.
They got that brand name, man. Like sci-fi is like, even though they spelled it a couple different ways. Are you pointing to me?
Windows decided to update in the middle of the show. Does anybody use Windows?
Why do you use Windows?
What do we need Windows for?
It runs the lighting.
Oh, that's why shit went dark.
Whenever Bill Gates fixes his update.
All right. So yeah, I heard about it. I'm excited for it because I think it's a great book. It's just they greenlit a script that they are going to shoot a pilot for. Who knows if they'll make it a series or not? I hope they do, because there's a long road of stories you could tell about Deadly Class. It's really sharp. So fingers crossed. But we talked about before the likelihood of a thing that goes to pilot actually becoming a TV show, which is not to say slim. The fuck is going on here? It's like a bar in the Old West. Are you about to have a fight? Who's going through the window?
hearing you talk about Deadly Class.
Damn it, Clint Eastwood.
All right, where are we gonna go next?
Hey, Kevin, Mark,
Bang.
we brought gifts for you.
You brought gifts.
Yeah, we're from Ripper Blades and Ripley's Believe It or Not in Hollywood.
Hi.
Hey,
This is Gary Ripper. He made you a Batman blade.
holy
Bring
shit.
it on up, man. But handle first, please. That is badass.
Holy shit.
Oh, look at that.
And they do the time.
Fuck
Oh my
yes.
God, that's awesome. Holy shit.
Wow. I
Why are
mean,
we getting gifts?
isn't it though? Wow.
Thank you. Why? What did we do to deserve this?
I am
Yes, you are.
gonna go commit some Batman Forever crime tonight.
I have a different kind of blade from one that you battle with too. So
Oh,
Do you guys make and sell these?
yeah.
Where can we send people who want one of these? Show the prototype.
this is not a prototype? This is some Rick and Morty level
Good one.
shit. Pickle Rick!
Ripper Blades, RIPPER. Ripperblades.net.
Fucking hell. Listen, officer,
Oh,
I
I got
was not
noise.
driving with this on purpose. A dude gave it to me at the show.
This is the Galaxy blade.
What?
That is fantastic, and it's purple.
This is the vape.
It's like Prince's lightsaber,
Vape
man.
saver.
You can vape like this saber here.
That's a vape as well?
It's a vape saber right here.
A
Yeah.
vape saber?
Yeah.
That's pretty
It's not a vape right
fantastic.
now, but you vape on the palm on.
Use the blunt, Luke.
Ripperblades.net.
Wow.
Ripperblades.net.
Oh my
Holy
God. Do
shit.
we get to keep these? Thank you so much.
And you get a particular screw that comes out, and you can fight with this blade here.
Wow. My son is going to be so jealous that he can't touch my fucking light up swords.
I'm gonna go home and wake my wife up. Just turn it on and be like, hi. All right, where are we gonna go next?
This
Over
dude right
there.
here.
Right there, he keeps going, yo.
Is,
How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
What do you guys think about J.J. Abrams coming back to direct episode 9? What are your thoughts on that?
Fantastic. Did we talk about this before?
we did, but we can recap briefly.
I'm all for it, especially because he put me in the last one. So I think JJ's a great director. I think he did a great job with Force Awakens. It was a tough road to hoe, and totally worked. Made people excited about Star Wars again. Hey, the lights are back.
And we're
Well
back.
done, JC. So I'm excited as fuck, man. I'm glad. I honestly didn't understand why he wasn't doing all of them, and then I figured it was because timing. Like it would take too long to go from one to the other to the other. So they gave him the 3 different people. So I'm glad that he gets to finish it out. What about you?
I'm on board because Bad Robot pays my checks. So, yay, JJ! I mean, I do, as we said last time, I do feel like there was an opportunity to give it to somebody who was both not JJ but might not fuck it up. In the same way that apparently they've had a problem finding directors who won't fuck it up. My fingers are crossed for Ava DuVernay, given that Disney is in love with Wrinkle in Time and Star Wars is a Disney jammy jam. It would have been nice to see a different flavor, like to see a female take on Star Wars, to see an African American take on Star Wars. But you cannot fault the logic of JJ. So, and the lens flare, and he pays me money. So.
He is the modern day George Lucas, Steven Spielberg guy. So I'm all on board, man. I can't wait. But that being said, I think Ryan's looks wonderful based on that trailer. Like honestly, I think the first trailer for me, I was like, yeah, okay, Star Wars, of course I'll be there. But this trailer got me real excited, especially when it's like, is he gonna kill Leia? Is he gonna fucking kill Leia? My dog wouldn't answer me. I can't fucking.
No, man.
No answer. How are you?
Great. I just wanted to say I love Mark's addition to the show. I'm a
Oh, thank you.
practicing screenwriter, and I feel like I've learned a lot from you guys hearing you discuss your writing processes and different things that how you would approach material on the show. So, thank you.
I agree, man, and thank you for that. I'm sure Mark thanks you as well.
Like, you speak for me. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
really. Thank you. I agree, though, man. That's one of my favorite things about doing the show is when Mark gets writerly. Because I like to think of myself as a writer, but I'm not a traditional writer. I just write fucking goofy shit about me. So it's nice to like hear what a real writer thinks, especially as I head possibly toward like, if Sam and Twitch winds up being an episodic TV show, like everything he said to me over the last few years has sank in. And of course, he'd be working on it as well.
So then Kevin Smith should direct the next Star Wars, because then you can be paying me money.
Yeah.
That's how this goes.
I wouldn't like that, honestly, if they were like, you can have it and we'll pay you all the money to do it. I don't think I'd be interested in that. That shit takes a long time. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like a lot of work. What's easier is to watch it and then make jokes about it later on. That's kind of my thing in life.
Yeah, or you could take it and then get fired off it.
Yeah, that's true. Join a very non-exclusive club. All right, where are we going to go next? Oh, over there, yes.
As much as I love all the superheroes that we get now, we get dozens, literally. I love hearing about kind of remembering the 80s, 90s when we kind of had to really pick and choose what we got. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on the animation boom in the 90s, Marvel, DC, X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, and did you ever get close to dabbling in animation?
Let me see. The closest I ever got to, we did a Clerks animated series, and they aired 2 and then fucked off. It's Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie.
Which I still get checks for.
Do you really?
Yeah?
We
For 38 cents.
that's not bad.
I'll take it.
We've done like Smautomation shorts and stuff like that, but nothing like hero oriented. I wrote a script for Warner Brothers Animation for a Plastic Man pilot, for an episodic pilot, which I was told recently they're not doing. So I wish, there was never like, is this possible? There were a bunch and shit. And they're like, we're just not ready for Plastic Man right now. But I liked what I wrote and stuff. But no, there's never been anything that I honestly, if I watch an episode of Rick and Morty, it cures me of any desire to think I could be in cartoons too. Like, they've taken the medium, fucking transcended with it and stuff. I don't think so. Like, you're very sweet, but a Kevin Smith Rick and Morty would suck. I love watching that show, and at the end of it, I'm just like I couldn't do that. Like the same way I felt about Simpsons when I was younger. I was like, I love watching it, could never write that. Like my brain's not set up that way and stuff. So I get to look up to it, admire it and stuff. It's nice to have shit like that you can just like without being like, ooh, I want to be involved. So often in life I fall in love with things where I'm like, ooh, I want to be involved, and I put my fucking shitty smeary taint all over it and stuff like that. So it's nice to have some shit like that I'm not involved in. You know what I'm saying? I could still always just appreciate it from a distance. Nothing wrong with being a fan. You don't always have to be fucking involved. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I tell myself, particularly about Rick and Morty. I'm like, or not just Rick and Morty, just animation in general. Like, enjoy the people that do it, because you can't do it like that. That's what I say to myself. As for 90s cartoons, I was not a big X-Men guy. That was Jason Mewes. He had every episode recorded and stuff. I had every episode of Batman the Animated Series recorded. That was my jam. I was working at Quick Stop when it started airing, and I had taken to bringing a TV into the convenience store. After my bosses left, I'd bring a TV in from the car and stuff. And then since there was a video store next door, I started bringing in a VHS as well, so I could just take movies and watch them while I was working at the convenience store. So then I would go next door to the video store. It was at first they aired 2 episodes, I think, at night of Batman, and then it went to an afternoon schedule on Fox, if I remember correctly. So I would go turn the VCR on and shit, and record every episode and collect them all. And I loved it because it was so true to the books, like more true to the books than the movies were being. Like, it just felt like a comic book come to life. And Kevin Conroy's depiction of Batman was it. Like, you know, you'd heard others, but that was the voice of Batman. So much so that from there forward, every time I'd read a comic book, that's the voice I hear when I read Batman. It's Kevin Conroy's voice, and Mark Hamill is the Joker and stuff. So, oh my God, like, it treated the material seriously, with respect. Like, it didn't make clowny cartoons. It also looked beautiful. I mean, I know a lot of people swear by those X-Men cartoons, but those Batman cartoons look 1,000 times better. Like, the X-Men cartoons look like coloring books, and that's not bad. They were kids' cartoons. But with Batman the Animated Series, they were trying for something else, something artistic at the same time. And they had a lot of faith in their audience. Even though they were making a kids' show, they weren't like, these kids are stupid, so we have to tell them what's going on every step of the way. There's a lot of nuance in those stories, man. I mean, think about the Heart of Ice story, Mr. Freeze story. It's not really for children at all, but it works. It doesn't scare kids and shit like that. It's a great Batman story for kids, like, ooh, this is where Mr. Freeze comes from. But it's a fucking tragic story about, like, love gone wrong and stuff, and a villain who's a victim himself. So that was the highest bar I'd ever seen set in animation. And I don't, in terms of superhero animation, I don't know that anybody's touched it since. There have definitely been some wonderful cartoons, and I loved Batman Brave and Bold. I thought it was a real love letter to Silver Age comics and stuff like that, and I love Diedrich's Batman. But I don't think it's ever been as good as it was with Batman the Animated Series, man. That was like a dream team of creators, like coming up with not just characters that exist in the Batman universe and defining them, coming up and adding spokes to the wheel. We only have Harley Quinn because of Batman the Animated Series. So that's my religion. And anything that I was into before I started making movies, I always hold doubly affectionate towards, because I was a fan. You know what I'm saying? Now, because now I make stuff, you get access and you get to see things early, and people send you stuff and shit. But I worked for my Batman the Animated Series fandom. Yeah, granted, the work was running over to the video store, which was only 30 steps away and shit, and recording, but like I kept my shit cataloged and whatnot. I went out of my way for it. So it always reminds me of like this wonderful time in my life. I love making movies and shit like that, but there was a minute right before we did any of that stuff, which is like my favorite part of my life. And Batman the Animated Series is really tied up in that. Mark?
Thundercats are awesome.
What did you watch? What was your cartoon growing up?
My cartoon growing up was reruns of the old Warner Brothers Looney Tunes stuff.
I love that shit too. Yeah.
Like I would clean my room every morning, every Saturday morning, so that I could be ready for 9 a.m. when they would start. And you just get them for an hour, and that was it. And I tried to explain to my son that I had to like tune in at a specific time for a thing that would never happen again, because that's the way life works.
Kids just like,
There's no on demand, there's no DVR. I was like, nah, buddy, we didn't have a VCR. These were the olden days. But yeah, it was that and Batman. I mean, I was working at Starlog magazine when Batman the Animated Series started, and I
You were
remember
working at Starlog?
I was, yeah,
You collected checks that said Starlog on them?
yeah. You want to see my back issues?
It's like a geek dream. All right, so you're working at Starlog. What happened?
Yeah, I remember when it premiered, and we did like 98 stories on it because it was Starlog magazine, and we were fucking nerds for it. And then in the 2000s, like I fell in love with this show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is.
Before you had kids?
No, but they didn't watch it with me because they resisted at every turn.
it's
Anything I
just-
thought it was cool. Just me sitting down watching Nickelodeon. Like, what's Dad doing? He's watching your shit. Why are you not watching it with him? Because we don't like it. But yeah, it's an amazing piece of literature. It really is. Like if I was 7 when that had come out, that would have been my Star Wars.
Really?
Like it is that deep, it is that mythic, it is that sort of foundationally smart and strong. Like I mean, and Legend of Korra, which is the sequel to it, is equally strong, but from a completely different angle. It's a different energy to it.
Right.
But it is cartoons of the highest caliber. I cannot say that highly enough. So yeah, Thundercats and G.I. Joe, Where Nobody Ever Dies.
Did you watch G.I. Joe?
Yeah, fuck yeah, Rise of Serpentor and shit. The Weather Dominator, fuck yeah. Like it
How
was.
old were you?
I was like 11 or 12, and it was a weekly.
What year were you born?
71.
So how come I wasn't watching G.I. Joe?
That's a question for you and your God, sir.
I remember Pete King, who was my friend who came down for the summers. He had a bungalow across the street from our house. And I grew up in a town on the Jersey Shore called Highlands, and so Pete's family, they lived in Brooklyn, and his dad worked for Con Edison, the power company. So during the summer, they would come down and stay at their summer bungalow and stuff. So me and Pete King, he was right across the street. He was my summer best friend. He loved Star Wars, and he had all the toys. His parents got him everything and shit like that. So we played Star Wars all the time, and you know, it was like you would play the movie, and then you would start making up adventures and shit. It was the birth of creativity. That's how you learn to be a writer, man. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you give a kid toys from a movie, there's no invention there. That's not at all true. Like, you know, I had whole fucking adventures where Luke and Leia got married, and that was fucked up later on, but still, got to use my imagination and stuff like that. So, yeah, therapy came later. So, it was, Pete got into G.I. Joes at a certain point. He transitioned away from Star Wars circa, like 83 after Return of the Jedi. He was kind of like, well, that's it and stuff. And he was getting more and more into G.I. Joe. And, you know, that I didn't follow, so we kind of not stopped playing. I'd still see him and be like, hey, what's up? But I didn't follow him into the G.I. Joe obsession. He had, like, the fucking aircraft carrier and shit like that.
Wow.
And he was
Hardcore.
a big fan of the show and believed in it. He would always try to tell you, got to watch it, man. It's cool, it's connected, it's like Star Wars. But he said that about everything. You know, he's like, you got to see Snoopy Come Home. It's like Star Wars.
You'll cry.
Old Pete King passed away, he died. He stepped off a curb in New York going to CBGB's back in the day, and a cab clipped him and fucking killed him, man. It's crazy, yeah. It bums me out all the time. Whenever I think about Star Wars, and now they're making all these new Star Wars, and fucking they're talking about Boba Fett's solo movie, Young Yoda movie, and shit like that. Like, that was the guy I shared Star Wars with the most. This would be an amazing time for him. Like, we used to fucking play Boba Fett, like fucking going through all the movies, like, you know, even though he wasn't in Star Wars and shit like that, and playing Trapped in Time and stuff. So I was always like, that'd be cool if they did that. And now they're doing a movie. It'd be badass if they put Boba Fett all throughout the Star Wars universe, like in places he never
Like
was.
Zelig just hanging out in the back.
Well, he's got like a time device where suddenly he's in Rebels, you know, suddenly he's in
Is Boba Fett a Time Lord?
now, you know, for this version of the story. They gotta make like 9 of these Star Wars movies a week to make the money back. So like, why couldn't this be one of them? All right, so wait, Where was I?
Cartoons. I feel like we've well and
I
truly.
watched G.I. Joe, yeah.
No, there was the Rise of Serpentor. I remember was a daily miniseries. It was like Monday through Friday. Every day was a chapter in the story, which we then collected later on as a whatever the fuck. And then Transformers. I was big into Transformers.
I didn't go that. I couldn't do that either.
No,
I'm not a car person. And
are you a robot person? Because half the time they're.
I am, but I like my robots British and little. You know,
There's no canine.
That just felt like too naked a merchandising sell to me. You know, like He-Man was another hole I didn't fall down. It was weird because like that seemed like a naked grab for money, whereas Star Wars and all my Star Wars figures never occurred to me as a naked grab for money. I was like, well, this is serious. It's based on a fucking movie.
Kevin, why do you have 18 boxes of Cheerios in the house? I gotta fucking cut out these proof of purchase so I can send away to Kenner so I can get the fucking IG-88 doll because otherwise there's no way to get this doll. But that wasn't a play for toys.
Was IG-88 a send away figure?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
I remember getting that figure too. Like he looks like a dildo.
Yeah.
I didn't think that when I was a child. You know. When I was a kid, I was like, he looks like a wiener.
It's a massaging aid. Not a dildo.
Massaging aid.
Personal massager. Somebody sneak some shit to the mail. No, Mom, I bought a personal massager.
All right, where do we go next? Bang, right there.
Taking it back to Star Wars.
Not that far back. We were just there.
The episodes we have right now, 1 through 7. Can you tell me your favorites, your least favorite, and why? Your order, basically.
Empire will always be first. Let me see. I want to put Rogue One high, but only because of 1 minute of the film. So I don't know if I should give it the second spot.
Technically, it's not an episode, so we don't have to count.
Good, thank you. That was off the hook. Let me see. I go Empire. I go Force Awakens. I go Star Wars, Jedi, and then put the prequels in any order you want. Let's see. I mean, if I have to put those in order as well, I'd go reverse. I go Sith, clones, and then
No, that one.
Menace. That's it. Yeah. I think that's my order. You?
I go New Hope first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because for my money, there is still not a moment in any of those films that is as magical as the Millennium Falcon streaking out of the sun during the Death Star trench run.
All right, it's like, you're clear, kid.
Yeah,
Now blow
like
this
that.
thing and go home.
That is the first time I ever felt chills in a movie theater. And I was like 7, and I'm like, I don't know what this fucking means, but this is amazing. I want all of this all the time. It is the most heroic thing I think I've ever seen in a movie.
What, him?
Yeah, Han Solo is for me the hero of those films.
Why?
Because everybody else is born into it. Like Luke Skywalker was going to be a Jedi because his dad was a Jedi. Like the Force is within him because it's within him. Same thing with Leia.
Okay.
It's genetic for them. Han Solo chooses to be in this adventure. You know, despite, and they'd be fucked without him. Like he could have walked away. He should have walked away. Life would be better for him if he walks away. But he gives up everything to be in the rebellion. And that, for me, is what makes a hero. Not somebody who was born to be a hero. It's a dude who wakes up and says, you know what, fuck, I'm going to do the right thing. Even though it makes the worst sense for me right now. So that is the most heroic Han Solo's ever been, so that's my favorite of the movies. Then it's...
Hold on.
What?
Before you go further,
Yeah.
that just deserves applause. I've never fucking looked at it that way. That was awesome. Never thought about it that way. You're absolutely right, man. That's cool.
So yeah, New Hope, Empire, Force Awakens, Jedi because of Ewoks, Sith, Phantom, Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is the worst of those fucking movies.
Why?
Because it doesn't even introduce anything I need. And like at the very least, the first movie, Phantom Menace, dumb as it is, stupid as poop jokes as it might have, I meet Anakin Skywalker for the first time. I meet Obi-Wan Kenobi for the first time. It has things that I never saw before. Attack of the fucking Clones is bullshit. Just all bullshit, soup to nuts, beginning to end. It's like a detective story with bad detectives. What are we doing? Finding a clone arm. Who gives a fuck? Why? Why? Even Lucas has said it's his least favorite of them all.
Is that the one where Ben Kenobi goes to see that space chicken at the diner?
Because he's following leads.
That was the first yeah, it felt like an episode of fucking
It's
Columbo.
it's Magnum Jedi is what that
It's
is.
like, here, let me look at this piece. And shit, well, this comes from a different galaxy. It was the real, it stood out. Especially
Yeah.
because it's like, well, all this is CG. Even the little robot was CG and stuff.
Yeah, it's just all
Yeah,
dumb.
that's kind of a bullshit scene. What happens at the end? Is that when they're all in the arena?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, out of nowhere, she's like, I love you. And you're like, why?
Yeah.
This fucking guy?
That's-
Why, just because the script says so? Run!
That's the like, your skin is so soft, unlike sand,
Sand
which
is
gets coarse
it
and
gets
rough.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's that bullshit. It's George Lucas has never been in love, so he's trying to write a romance.
Or he's trying to remember back to when he was in love, and he's like, I think I talked about sand a bunch. All right, where to go next?
Yeah.
Right there, dead ahead.
First of all, appreciate you both being such authentic people. Every time I see you, it makes me want to just be a better person. Every time I see you as well, every time you get writery, makes me want to get writery too.
Me too.
Do you both have any comic book properties that are within reach, that are live action other than the DC universe? And Sam and Twitch.
Sam and Twitch is the one that I'm involved with. Hopefully it moves forward, but that's the only thing. I was involved with Buckaroo Banzai and then stepped away because creators weren't being involved. So hopefully they clear that up and I get to work on that again one day. But right now, that's the only thing I'm working on. If I understand the question correctly, what about you?
I have a comic book that I'm still writing called Genius that's coming out through Top Cow and Image that is creator owned, that belongs to me and my writing partner, that we are starting to talk to people in Hollywood about Hollywood things.
What's
which
that process like? I've never done that. Tell me.
it's
I really haven't. I've never done something where I'm like, here's my thing, and I'm going to try to sell it to you. Like,
yeah, it goes both ways. It goes the way right now we're in a process where we're building a pitch and we're going to take it out and do the town and say, here's our thing. We want to do a TV show. The other side of that is we have the IP. It belongs to us, and people come to us saying, we read your book, really like it. We want to make it into a movie. Here are the 18 things you want to change about it. And for us, it's always which of these things can we tolerate and which of these won't we tolerate? You know, and the thing we're always the most protective of is the reason why you fell in love with the project to begin with, you can't change that. So if this book happens to be about a girl who is the greatest military mind of her generation, but she's 17 years old and lives in South Central, and she decides to declare war on the LAPD and secede 3 square blocks from the Union through force, it has to be the LAPD. It has to be a girl. It has to be now. It can't be after an earthquake. It can't be in the future. It can't be, what if it's private security? No, like you lose all of the things that make that idea.
is that what the story is?
That's what the story is.
Fucking cool, man.
Yeah, and like we pitched this book in 2007. The first issue came out in 2009, and nobody wanted to publish it. Everybody was like, wow, hey, it's got a black lead, it's got a female lead, and a comic. Nobody wants those, and you're killing cops. And like, nobody's going to buy this. And Top Cow rolled the dice, and it came out and it did well enough. And then fucking Ferguson happens. And then suddenly it's, oh shit, so there is police brutality. Oh shit, so there is a sort of systematic initiative that seems to be devaluing certain segments of the population as opposed to others. There is moments where we see tanks rolling down residential neighborhoods and we see militarized police actions. And suddenly what was unthinkable in 2007 is now just the news. And so there's this whole new life to it. And that's why we're sort of dusting it off and taking it out, because it is not as hard to sell as it was 10 years ago for the most awful reasons. But cha-ching. I'm a mercenary.
I was just asking, like, do you bring the comic book with you? But we went some deep places.
We went a little deep. So yeah, there's a couple things like I've been doing comics for about 10 years, and there's the Marvel stuff and there's the DC stuff, but then there's the handful of shit that I've done on my own that belongs to me that under right circumstances, i.e., Brink's truck full of cash, will I sell them? I don't have to direct it. He just got to sign those checks.
Right there.
Oh, well, Tiffany's been having a question for the longest time.
We go to Tiffany. Hey! First we'll go there, and then we'll go to Tiffany.
How do you write the greatest military mind of a generation? I mean, how would you do that?
How do I write somebody who's supposed to be smarter than I am? I cheat. Some of it is research. Some of it is like looking back and, all right, well, how the fuck did Hannibal take Carthage? How the fuck did Alexander take whatever? How did
I was fucking literally, as you were talking, I was like, I wonder if Hannibal played a role.
totally?
That's the only war expert I know of. So I'm glad to hear he worked.
But it's a bit like plotting a mystery in that you start with the whodunit. You know, like I know in this story who kills Colonel Plum and the whatever the fuck, and then I just work backward to hide the clues. Like if I've got to make sure she wins, I know she's going to win. So let me just, serpentine my way back through the story to make it look surprising and inevitable.
It's kind of fucking crazy, man. Like you put way more thought into your writing than I ever do. Like I just start writing, and I'm like, wherever it goes, it fucking goes and stuff. But and there's no here are the themes or anything like that. I was texting with Dan Harmon about coming over to the house doing a podcast and stuff, and he, I want to deep dive with him because he seems like a guy who's also very what's the hero's journey? Here's the arc. Like they take the writing seriously.
He's got, I think it's a clock style diagram for every episode of TV that he does, where every quarter of the clock is a different phase of the story. And it's like, your hero starts here, and here's first complication, and here is the first resolution, and then here is it's mathematics for him after a while.
Yeah, I wanted to get inside his head because I like that show, and then I heard about that process. I was like, that's treating it very seriously.
Yeah.
When I sit down to write, I'm like, oh, let's make some giggles. But that's like somebody going you gotta be precise, and there's a formula to this kind of shit.
Yeah.
So I've been texting with him, and he was like, I was like, hey man, you free? And he didn't get back to me, and then he got back to me. He was like, hey, I'm free. And I said, oh, I'm in New York. He's like, oh, I'm in New York tomorrow. And I was like, oh, but I go to Atlanta. And he goes, we are like two spies in the night. So I said, I'm going to be in Los Angeles next week. He's like, I'm going to be in Los Angeles next week. And I said, brilliant, let's do it. So I'm going to sit down with him and find out about that. That, it's one of those things where, I think of myself as a writer, and then I hear that, I'm like, oh, is that what writers do?
Yeah, I mean, it's what writers do who have to do this over and over and over again.
Why?
Because after a while, I'm not going to say, not to squeeze all the creative juice out of an idea, but you got to build the show. You got to keep the trains running, and you cannot reinvent television every episode.
Right.
So depending on your show, there's a formula. There's 3 or 4 different formulas. If you're doing a procedural, then bam, somebody's got to get murdered in Act 1. You got to have your misdirect in Act 2. You got to meet the person who actually did it by Act 3. And you got to have your red herring in 4, and you got to figure out who did it in 5. And that's every fucking mystery. You watch any show, any police procedural, the third person your detectives meet did it. It's almost always the third person.
That's the Murder, She Wrote rule.
Yeah. It's not the first person, is the third person. Oh, that motherfucker did it.
Law and Order does that too.
Yeah, that's how you do that. That's how you do 500 episodes of a TV show. There's a formula.
I'm so fucking stupid. I just thought it was I just thought it happened. I just thought it was talent. People are like, hey man, here's the episode. We're done. But you're right. There has to be some sort of constant structure in order to fill that much.
I mean, it's different in prestige TV. Like Game of Thrones doesn't have a formula other than the episode before the finale is when all the big shit will happen, and then the finale is denouement. Right. But by and large, they're just telling one big season-long story.
They're just making a movie a week, it feels like.
Right. But if you're doing anything that has to recur and with a Flash has a formula,
That I've noticed.
Yes.
Every time the boy wants to solve his problems, he runs real fucking fast. That much is clear.
And doesn't solve it.
There's that as well.
Yeah.
Tiffany.
So I know you said you love the scenes at the end of the Star Wars trailer are cut together. I really want to see this at Pool 2 on a big screen. How would you feel if it was Rey and Kylo that were the new?
That'd be fucking amazing. I would love it if Rey and Kylo were the two Sith Lords. And then who's the good guy then?
Luke.
But if you got two Siths, couldn't they take out one old ass Last Jedi with a robot hand? You got two young bucks and shit like that. That's true. That's what I would like to see. I want to see Chewie take out Kylo Ren because Kylo Ren took out Chewie's boyfriend. So he's the one that, I know, like, Han and Leia have history in the kid, but who's been with him longer than Chewie? And he seemed really fucking pissed and hurt. Like, he's got one fucking move, but like, when he did it, you could feel the fucking loss. And then, he tried to take out Kylo Ren. It was a wonderful internet cartoon. I forget who drew it, but it depicted that scene where Chewie's about to fucking shoot Kylo Ren, and then he thinks back to like when Kylo Ren was a kid and Chewie was hanging out with him and stuff, and then he lowers, like essentially he could have killed him and fucking didn't. I thought that was so fucking beautiful. That's not in the movie. That's just somebody's interpretation of it. In the movie, I think he was trying to hit him in the fucking head. He was just got too much hair in his eyes. Like, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. But that's not going to be the case. Could you imagine they sell toys to a bunch of kids and like, hey kids, be the Sith. Sith happens. But I hope so. That'd be fucking interesting to say the least.
Kylo Ren.
Are you think? I saw somebody online say, I think they're brother and sister. They're not, right?
Are
they?
I don't know. I work for another studio, so we're not talking about that. But
Which one, Warner Brothers?
yeah.
Hey, Justice League looks great.
Excellent cover.
But I think the brothers, I thought that from Force Awakens.
Do you think they know? Do you think anybody do you think we lost the show? Hey. Do you think they knew when they started it?
I think they would have to.
I don't know.
I mean,
They were rushing so fast.
George did not know they were brother and sister in Star Wars. I know, like making that shit up as we go.
Yeah.
I think it would be too easy if they were brother and sister like that. It's too obvious for that to be the thing.
Yeah, I thought at the end of Force Awakens, I kept saying, "Oh, it's Luke's daughter," because she just came. She found her dad. She's like, "Dad, here's your fucking laser dick back. Let's go fucking kick some ass." But then somebody was like, "Why do you think?" Somebody started saying, "Oh my God, did JJ tell you that that's his daughter?" I was like, "No, that's what I assumed when I watched it." And then a lot of people seem to think she's a Kenobi. She's Ben Kenobi, hence the accent. Mm-hmm. And then some people online, these are none of my arguments. I read people online having these arguments. They said that no, she's got an accent from the guy that they left her with on Jakku. That dude who's like, "You get a Porsche." That Simon Pegg did the voice of. Because then they put it out online. They're like, kids aren't born with an accent, you idiot. Like, she would pick that, even if she was Kenobi's kid, she would have picked it up from that dude on Jakku. I spent a lot of time reading people's theories on Star Wars online. It's interesting to me, man.
I could tell. I had a day job, so.
Where are we going next? Right there.
Holy shit.
The most appreciative respondent we've ever had.
Are you familiar with the Jay and the Silent the Bomb?
I have a passing familiarity with those characters.
Jay and Taciturn Robert, my favorite.
They are. I didn't intend that. But I didn't intend that, so I can't take credit for it. But somebody pointed it out to me. The first French journalist I ever sat down with in Cannes with Cashiers du Cinema. They said, "We're gonna talk to this guy," and I said, "I can't speak French." They're like, "He barely speaks English, so it's going to be fun." And I said, "What did he possibly have to say? He just seen Clerks." I was like, "Why? Why would he want to talk to us? It was a movie set in New Jersey and shit like that." So like, I don't know, sit down and find out. I sat down with the dude and he looked French as fuck, man. He had a beret and a little mustache and smoking a cigarette, fucking thin cigarette.
Did have a
And then-
baguette in his back pocket?
Might as well have. And then he had his shirt set, the La Chatte Noir. And so I sit down with him and he inhales a cigarette and he goes, Jay and Silent Bob, they are not like a modern day R2D2 and C3PO, no? And I was like, oh my God, my French brother from another, whatever that thing is. But it wasn't the case. I didn't intend that. But once he said it, I was like, that's so smart. And so every interview after that, I'd be like, well, of course, Jay and Silent Bob are meant to represent C3PO and R2D2 and stuff. But it wasn't the intention, but it wound up being what they were. You know, they carried through all the movies and stuff like the droids.
You should have to say it in a French accent from now on.
Actually,
Silly boob.
But when I think about it, like if they were indeed our Jay and Silent Bob were our R2 and D2 and C3PO, we want one better than them because R2D2 and C3PO never had their own movie, right? I mean, unless you count the cartoon droids. The cartoon. I guess they had their own ongoing series.
Nobody counts droids.
Nobody counts.
Nobody counts droids.
Paul Dini worked on droids. The great Paul Dini who wrote Batman the Animated Series.
We all sometimes have to cash a check.
I think he was happy to. He talks about it he was a big Star Wars fan, so he got to work under Lucas, which sounds dirtier than I meant it, but you know. Okay, where are we going next? Way about right there.
So I'm not a big comic book follower, but
Oh my God, like this show must be hell for you, right?
I love Dogma and Clerks and all. I love you. But so when Wonder Woman came out, it was such a feminist movie, and now this next movie's coming out about the origin of it, Dr. Martin. What do you think? Is that going to change how people feel about Wonder Woman as a feminist character?
No, I don't think so. If anything, it'll make them go like, "Oh, that's why she is such a feminist character." Based on what I've seen in the trailer and when I know that story, it celebrates the women that influenced Professor Marsden to come up with the character. For those that don't follow, was William Marshall?
William Molston Marston.
William
Molten.
Marston?
Molson Golden.
Moulton Marston.
Molten lead.
Created the character of Wonder Woman. He also created the lie detector, the polygraph test. That's why Wonder Woman has a magic lasso of truth. He was obsessed with the notion of truth.
He was also obsessed with strapping people to chairs.
Yes. He was a big believer that women should run the world and men were inferior and that the world would be a better place with strong women in charge. So the opening issues of Wonder Woman depict a lot of bondage for that reason. Women bonding men up and stuff like that, binding men up. Also, he lived with two women. He was married and had a girlfriend. They lived in a three-way relationship, polyamorous. I don't know what you would call it these days. But his wife wore silver bracelets. So, like through the movie, they pieced together how Wonder Woman came to be, and it came to be through a guy who was just like, these women are the greatest thing in the world, and he kind of seemed like he can combine the best parts of them and turn them into that character. So I think the movie is going to be a celebration of the character. I don't think it does anything to hurt it. I think it makes a lot of people go, oh, fuck, that's where it came from. That's interesting. Yes, the book, what's his name? Grant Morrison, when he was on Fat Man on Batman, talked about the book years ago. He was a big fan of he also did a Wonder Woman story, so he was doing a deep dive on the character, and he was explaining, he told me all that shit about the backstory. He was like, the guy who created him lived with two women and was into bondage. I'm like, what? Like Bob Kane's story is boring compared to that. Okay, where we go next? Right there, yes.
I know that you just said that you wouldn't touch a Star Wars movie, but mainly because your films deal not with the big stories, but with individual people and characters. If they handed you the keys to the Star Wars universe and said, pick a character as big or small of the story, someone you want to focus on and really tell a story about, is there anyone that you would want to delve into?
I mean, I'm so boring. I would choose Boba Fett just because, like, oh, he looks great. He always has been. You don't know a lot about him and shit like that. Yeah, and also for sentimental reasons, I'd choose Boba Fett. For Pete. What about you?
You really belong with us among the stars.
You would do the
I would do Lando. I would do Lando all fucking day long. Lando or or the Mon Calamari, Admiral Akbar.
Oh, it's a trap.
We're too close to the battlefield.
Would you do it him present, like at his age, or would you do it when he was young, like how he got so anxious and shit?
I would do like I would do like a mockumentary. It's just like talking heads of Akbar. Like, well, I was 7 years old. I was raised to be an accountant, but I said to my mother, I
thought everything was a fucking trap. It wasn't. Well, that one time.
I feel a call for the stars, mother. Yeah, I would do that. That'd be
You
fun.
always, when I was a kid, I imagined they had to go into the water at a certain point.
I mean, you'd think they're fucking calamaris.
Yeah.
Space calamaris.
They don't need that water.
Yeah.
Right there.
Two quick ones.
Okay.
Are you going back to direct any Flash episodes here?
I go up in January, unless they take the job away from me, because I just did an episode of Supergirl, and so maybe they watch it and they're like, "You fucking suck." But barring that, I'm going up in January after the holiday. To do another one. I don't know what episode number it is, but it airs tonight. It's happening. It probably already happened. Yeah. Flash season the premiere was tonight. You missed it to be here? Shit. Thank God for DVRs and stuff. Who watches it on a time anyway, though, right? Although a bunch of people do, because like when it's on, I know it because my Twitter feed like lights up and stuff. So I guess people do honor the TV schedule somewhere in the world. Like I don't. There's very few shows. Maybe Game of Thrones. That's the one where I'm like, I will watch this when it's on. But generally, everything else I catch up to when I want to. What about you?
Last Man on Earth is one of the few that I watch
You will like watch it
live.
in real time?
Really, because my son is in love with it, and
Really?
yeah, which he should not be, but because it's a little heady for a 13-year-old,
Is it?
sometimes literally. Yeah, and Game of Thrones, but that's about it.
That's heavy as well.
It really is. He doesn't watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Show me the dragon though.
no, he doesn't care about dragons. I know, it breaks my heart. Who the fuck are you?
He's like, grow up, Dad.
Dragons are bullshit.
In the back, yes.
With Empire being your favorite, you put in the Dante's mouth that it's because it was a series of downloads. That was a long time ago. Is it still your favorite because of that, or has that changed over time?
No, I like it. I like it because it is like down. I mean, it's certainly no parallel, but I grew up in the 70s, of course. And before I saw Empire, I saw another film about dealing with loss, a movie that didn't end happily, but was still a celebration. The movie was great, but it didn't give you that satisfying ending that you're supposed to get when you go to a movie theater. And because of that, was one of my favorite movies of all time. That's not the only reason. There were kids cursing in it. It was called The Bad News Bears. Bad News Bears taught my generation how to lose. Like, it was a story about kids who were unlikely and then fucking somehow beat the odds and made it to like the big game and shit and came within spitting fucking distance. And then spoilers. And then at age 6, I had to sit there in a theater and, watch them fucking lose. And it was, I don't know, it shaped us, I think, as a generation. In the moment, like, I would go back and see it again and again, hoping that, like, this time they're going to fucking win, But it was always, that was the lesson of that movie, was like, hey, man, it's just a game. Like, you don't always get to win. Sometimes fucking other people win. And yeah, sometimes they're like just literally better than you. You can't fucking help that. Or sometimes it's because your coach makes the worst fucking call of all time and decides that's the day everybody should play, instead of like waiting for the day after they win the trophy or whatever. But it was an important lesson, man. And I think that when I saw Empire Strikes Back, it spoke to me on the same level of like, this is a fucking movie that ends down. Like, you know, now everything fucking works out. And they lost the battle, but the Star Wars not quite over yet. So I think I'll always feel for it for that reason, because of the Bad News Bears effect.
So the 70s were big for that. Like, because I think in America in the 70s, everybody was broke, fuel crisis. Like Jimmy Carter was president, and people thought he was fucking it up. But the idea that you could lose but still win in the process, that effort is what counted. Rocky is the same way. Rocky doesn't win at the end of Rocky, but
That's an excellent point. Why don't I point to Rocky instead of the Bad News Bears? Probably because as a child, like Rocky's an adult, so there was
Right.
nothing for me there. So, and I'm also not an aggressive person, so I was never like, yeah, I want to fight like Rocky and shit. But the Bad News Bears, like, I could be fat like the one kid, and, I had a baseball cap and shit like that. So
but yeah,
I was
like
more
the idea that you could reframe for yourself what victory was. That it did not mean like all I got to do is stay on my feet. All I got to do is try as hard as I can try, and there's nobility in the effort, which felt like, I'm assuming, a bunch of adults felt in the 70s, which was, I'm not living a life as good as my parents were. Like, we're in the middle of a recession and fuel crisis, and I'm online to get a gallon of gas, and the job isn't paying me what it used to, but all I got to do is get up every morning and try. And it feels like Empire was a culmination of that decade of, fuck, man, if I just get up and do this one more time, maybe it'll break my way. And even if it doesn't, I fucking gave it my best.
Hmm.
And then
in a cyclical world, are we back in that place?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody yet feels like America is as bad off as it was in the 70s.
Was it like I was there, but I was a kid, and obviously I didn't fucking experience the world the same way that
Yeah.
adult would.
I mean, it's-
probably you did. But was it bad in the 70s? It's worse now.
I mean, it's worse now, but people don't.
Were you alive in the 70s?
I don't think they feel it as viscerally as they did in the 70s. Because I think that's one of the reasons why the 80s was so go-go cocaine crazy was, oh shit, Wall Street is paying off. We can all invest. We can all get our piece of the American dream. And it's the hookers and Testarosas and mobile phones and Miami Vice. Like, that's the life we're going to live. And then the 90s were fucking Ferris Bueller, and everybody's great. It's awesome. We're going to live the best lives ever. And now we're in this, like, shit, the real estate crisis almost destroyed everything. We almost lost the auto crisis. Like, terrorism is on the rise. Like, hey, it's not as bad as we think it is, except it's kind of worse, but we don't notice.
I thought we were gonna fucking bury our heads in pop culture and be happy tonight, man.
You brought up the 70s. I'm just helping.
I saw Jackie Earl Haley. He was part of the TIC panel for the IMDb. And so when the panel ended, I got to fucking, as it was ending, I got to shout him out. I was like, hey man, before we get out of here, I just want to point out Jackie Earl Haley is in one of my favorite movies of all time, Bad News Bears, and everyone was like, woo, and shit. And I'm sure he hates hearing it at this point, but like, I never had that moment. I never got to. Thank God we were on stage, because otherwise I would have just wept in his arms. Like, you're Kelly Leak, you know. So I said to him, and I said to the crowd, I was like, that movie, like, taught me how to lose as a child, and I've been a loser ever fucking since. So, like, thank you for that. But I think that's why. That's wild. I like your take on the 70s, man.
Yeah, but you also had Trans Ams. Those were cool.
That's true.
Burt Reynolds.
I made it all better.
Yeah, nice job.
Right there. You.
I would say for both of you, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of that actually. Growing up, the most memorable, impactful, and/or influential conflict or obviously movie scene of all time theater that affected you the most growing up.
Wow. What a great question. Movie scene that affected me the most. I can think of a few. There's a movie called The World According to Garp, which is a wonderful flick. And my old man took me to see it when I was not age appropriate at all. And I felt like a cool thing. Like, he trusted me enough to watch this movie. It wasn't a racing movie, but there's some shit in it that, like, you wouldn't show necessarily an 11-year-old. Somebody gets their dick bit off in a car accident and shit like that. So there was a moment in the movie where young Garp, T.S. Garp, and that's where I got the T.S. name in Mallrats from. Young T.S. Garp, his grandparents die. He grew up without a dad and shit. And Glenn Close is his mom, and she's wonderfully eccentric. Jenny Fields, this nurse who writes this feminist tome that, like, takes over the world, and she becomes one of the world's most famous people. So young Garp, they're at the family house, and her parents have died, and they've put him in the ground and shit. And so they're sitting on the steps of the house, and the young Garp says to his mother, he goes, "Now you don't have a father either, because he's never had a father his whole life." And she goes, "Nope." And they talk about death, and she goes, "It'll come for everybody. It'll come for you one day." She goes, "It'll come for me." But she's like, "You shouldn't be afraid of death." She's like, "Death's not I can't do it exactly." But she goes, what does she say? She goes, "It's not," she goes, "Everybody dies, Garp. It's about having a life before you die." And even at age 11, I was like, there it is. Somebody just said the realest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, we are all going to die, but have a life before you die. And she said that to her kid, who then goes on throughout the movie and has this like fucking epic life and stuff. So I always remember that. Like, you know, there are movie moments, of course, like fucking the lightsaber battle in Empire Strikes Back, or "I love you, I know," and shit like that. But that didn't shape me as an individual. That just gave me shit to talk about and shit that I love. But a moment like that shaped me as an individual. You?
When I was a kid, my dad took me to see Star Wars. This is not a Star Wars story, but he took me to see Star Wars. Realized how much I loved Star Wars, and then took me to every space movie that ever released into theaters. Good, bad, and indifferent. Like
So you saw Battlestar Galactica.
I saw Battlestar Galactica in the theater. I saw Star Trek: The Motion Picture and fell asleep. I saw Battle Beyond the Stars. But he took me to see Flash Gordon in 1980. And there's a moment in the movie when Flash is on Arborea because he's hiding out from Ming the Merciless, and Princess Aura decides, "I'm going to take you to see my boyfriend because that's a great idea." And so he's hiding along with Prince Baron and his flunkies, and he's got to take the test of manhood that they give everybody on Arbor. So on Arborea, so he sticks his hand in the stump, right, and inside the stump you see the fucking fleshy thing with a giant fucking pincer. And you see a dude do it beforehand, gets stung. Fucking James Bond just slices him with a sword, and he falls down. So Flash has to stick his hand in, and I'm on the edge of my fucking seat because I've never seen this much peril in my entire life, and I'm like, "Dad, are they gonna kill Flash Gordon?"
Really?
Yeah, because
I know, son. It's the second act.
he goes, "No, they never kill the hero." And I said, "Who's they?" And it was the first time I had ever realized that there were people who made these things. Like, I had just assumed that this was like, I don't know, documentary, whatever the fuck. We go to the movies and this is amazing.
This is happening right now, right?
Yeah.
Someone help him. He's about to put his hand in that stump. Don't do it.
But that was the first time I realized that this was a job people had, that people make this stuff. And that it's possible that I could maybe make this stuff too. So that is the scene that probably set me on the path.
Made you a writer.
It made me, at the very least, it made me pay attention. It made me understand that, oh shit, these credits mean something. This is not just the time to go to the bathroom. That these are actually people who did something. You know, this is not the, oh no, we got like 5 minutes before the movie starts because all these fucking credits are gonna go. This is a job. This is a life people lead. And if I play my cards right, I could have this job too.
You're a father. You've been a parent. I'm a father. I've been a parent. I don't remember ever having a conversation with my young child going, none of this shit's real. Like, you just assume that when kids start watching shit that they'll understand. Like, your dad just assumed, he's like, "Mom, take him to see Flash Gordon."
Yeah, it's fine.
He's not an idiot. I'm sure he'll understand that everything's for fucking fake and shit. And then you're like, "Dad, what will we do if Flash Gordon dies?"
Did you wet your pants again? Well, they almost killed the hero again. But yeah, my son will, especially when he was younger, he would be like, "This is all fake, right?" It's like, "Yeah, buddy, it's all fake."
Is it
Okay.
really? Like, that's what boys ask?
Yeah, so this is all fake? Because he would get super fucking tense and he'd just not be down with it. It's like, they're not going to kill that guy, right? No, buddy, it's all fake. Okay. All right, carry on.
My daughter, she would ask me different questions in the movie, like, "Why are we watching this?" And I'd be like, "Because Uncle Ben is in it. Watch." It's not a sad thing at all. It's way back in the day.
I just had the rice guy in my head for a second. I was like, why am I watching that? Scatman Crothers is in a movie and I missed it?
All right, let's grab another and then probably start getting out of here. Is that you? Do it up.
Yeah, would you and Mark consent to being the lead porn and Lando in my Star Wars fan film musical Porgy and Bessman?
That was a long road for that joke, but I appreciate it.
Oh my God, the shoe leather on it is amazing. For those that didn't hear, the idea is to do a musical called Porgy and Bessman. Very, very funny. Yeah, but I'm in. Fuck yeah. Any job. You don't even have to pay me, man. Just as long as I get to wear a hockey jersey, I'll fucking show up. Bang, right there.
Hey, have you watched the Seth MacFarlane's The Orville? And what do you think and what you guys want to rank for that?
I have not. Have you watched The Orville yet? I watched Star Trek, but I haven't watched The Orville.
Well, then you've seen The Orville. If you've seen Star Trek.
They're doing a pretty straight up honest adaptation.
I mean, listen, like, it feels as if The Orville is for people who don't know how to type Next Generation into a search bar. But I will say this. My son hates Star Trek. He loves The Orville because it's not Star Trek. Except it's totally Star Trek. It's just not called Star Trek.
It's better Trek than Trek.
Better Trek than Trek, you said, over there. And the room hisses a bit.
Yes. Your mileage may vary. But I actually think it's kind of a pretty nice tribute. I think it's mostly pointless, given that there are 700 hours of Star Trek that already exist. But it's kind of fun. Not as funny as it should be, not as serious as it should be, but it's this weird middle ground of we don't want to make a comedy, we don't make a drama, we're just going to make what Seth wants to make, which is legit because he's got $87 billion. So if he wants a TV show where he's a captain, he gets a TV show where he's a captain. But I do feel it's a little bit tits on a bull, except I don't mind tits or bulls. So
We're used to giving you props as a writer, not for that. Yeah, I have not checked it out yet. Maybe I will check it out based on that review.
whatever that was.
Ralph's in it though. My co-host from Hollywood Babylon. I don't know if he's been on it yet. He said he wasn't in it for the first few episodes, but he plays a space bartender. I don't know if he showed up yet. You'll see him when he does. You won't see him apparently. He says he doesn't fucking look a thing like him. So he says he spends a lot of time in makeup and stuff.
I mean, if this is the entry vector that gets people to go back to like classic Trek, then I'm all for it.
How's it doing ratings wise?
Solid. It's not like a runaway hit, but I think the expectations were relatively low for it.
So
So
we'll get a second season, I think.
probably, I think if only to keep Seth MacFarlane happy.
And nobody knows how Trek's doing? Because that's on the app channel.
The episode that aired on CBS did pretty well. I think it got like 8.9 million viewers, which in this day and age qualifies as a hit.
Right.
So much so that you'd think they would just fucking put it on CBS, but no,
They're driving to the app channel.
they're driving to the app channel. So nobody will ever know how those episodes are doing on the app.
Which one?
Discovery,
Star Trek? We talked about it, didn't we?
we did.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought the Klingons were a little much. It's felt like they did too much. This sounds stupid, but way too much makeup on the Klingons. Like they seemed overthought. That not just the headpieces, but also their outfits. They kind of look quasi-Shakespearean and shit like that. And it felt like it gave the actors very limited mobility with the characters. So much makeup here, so much stiff body work here with the suits. And I also felt like, I get it, Klingon's a real fake language, and it's cool if you can do a whole scene in it, but it gets a little much, right? Like, could you imagine if you were the actor hired to play one of those Klingons? You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be on Star Trek. Everyone would be like, I didn't see you. Who were you? And you're like, I was the Klingon. They're like, I didn't hear you. You're like, well, I didn't speak English either. Like, I always thought they should have pushed in on their face, like in Hunt for Red October. Dude's speaking Russian, they push in, all of a sudden he speaks English and shit. But I understand the show is sold internationally. So it probably behooves them to let the Klingons just be Klingon. That way there's one less thing to translate when they ship it overseas, maybe. That's my guess. Or somebody's a real big purist that's just like, no, they gotta fucking speak all Klingon. Was I the only one that bumped into that? I stand alone. Other than that, I liked it very much. You? Surprising. All right, where do we go now? Go ahead, right there.
I like the format with Mark, but is there any opportunity to go back with Paul Dini and do some Batman commentary?
Batman commentary. Yes. We could do that. Yeah. We can totally do it. They just announced they're releasing it all on Blu-ray, Batman the Animated Series. So we could probably stand to go through that.
Episodes to go back and just, shut down the switch?
Yeah.
I'll just be here at the bar.
Where else are we gonna go? Way in the back.
See?
We didn't talk about that. That's a big story. So for those that don't follow Rick and Morty, but this story was unavoidable this week. They did the season premiere, had a joke about Szechuan sauce, the sauce that McDonald's had done for Mulan back in the day. And the moment they did the joke in the episode, you knew, like, sooner or later it was going to happen. Like, it was just they were too intense about it. But the whole, remember, he's like, that's my one-armed man, Morty. Szechuan sauce. Like, so you knew sooner or later fucking McDonald's would be like, yeah, why not? Let's just pull it out of marbles or hawk, whatever they call it, mothballs. So they said, like, for one day only, this Szechuan sauce is going to be available and shit, and every Rick and Morty fan on the planet lined up around a McDonald's, and then they announced, like, massive disappointment because some stores only got like 20 packets and there were 1,000 people lined up. So police were pulled into some places as people were chanting, "We want the sauce." And cops were like, disperse, return to your homes. It was kind of crazy. So, number one, I don't know how they rate that show in terms of how they figure out who's watching. But I say the show is definitely a hit. If it made a bunch of people like go to McDonald's for Szechuan sauce, so much so that it made the news, like that's a massive fandom. And now they've announced that they're bringing it back. Like they realized they fucked up. Everyone went after them. There were a bunch of people online went to eat at every other fast food place, eating chicken into the camera and shit to tell McDonald's "fuck you," because they didn't have the Szechuan sauce. So it looks like they're bringing it back again this time. More volume. They should just add it to the fucking menu. Why not? At least for like a year, then drop it off. But man, that's a powerful fan base right there. That's a powerful cartoon. If it shifted a corporation's, fucking year, like one iota. It like when they announced that they were going to do it, I was like, Jesus, it's a massive ship. You can't just make quick fucking turns. Like this is a big deal to turn on the Szechuan sauce machine again. And apparently it was because there were like 20 packets. That's it. Saw them going online. People were selling them for $50 on eBay. It went up to $1,000. Oh my God! I want some of that sweet money.
That is a bunch of college kids who are going to have a rude awakening when the real world shows up.
Yeah. You see this? I paid $1,000 for it. They call me Gen Y. All right, let's do one more and get out of here, man. It's been a long time. Right back there.
Right here.
All right, then we'll go there and then we'll go there. Go.
You did a show with Greg Grunberg on AMC, Geek It Out.
Yeah.
I was a fan of that. I enjoyed it. It was great. You guys went to the Psycho House with JJ. It was so cool. What happened to the show? Is it?
AMC didn't pick it up for a second cycle. They it was not a bad thing at all. They, their feeling was, and they're absolutely right. Chris has that space on the network, and he hadn't done Talking with Chris Hardwick yet, but he'd done Talking Dead and Talking Preacher and Talking fucking everything else. So it makes more sense. He's got that time slot, and people are already watching. Feed into that. So, I got it. Like, I honestly was shocked that they gave that show a run at all, because I'm like, so wait, It's like two middle-aged white guys are going to talk about pop culture. Like can't you do that? You can watch that for free on the internet, left and right and shit. So I was surprised that
Why
even.
you brought me in.
Yes. That's exactly why Tiffany came in. I was like, good Lord, man. Like this, we need some diversity up in here. I was always surprised it made it on the air. I love the show. I love what we did with it and stuff, particularly what Tiffany did and brought to it. But it was surprising to me that it even existed. I was brought into that very late. Like Greg and his company had pitched that show and AMC liked it. And then they were like, well, we like it, but like, would you think about using Kevin Smith as co-host? Because we have him on Comic Book Man and we like him and stuff. So I was second to last element added to that show. And then I was like, we got to bring somebody else. And I suggested Tiffany because I sat down with Tiffany on Fandango and I think maybe on VC All Access and shit. And Tiffany knows her shit. And Tiffany's like fucking super smart when it comes to stupid shit. So just like us. So, she was a great welcome addition to the show. But when they didn't pick it up, I was never like, no. I was like, yeah, I get it. I'm shocked we even got as many episodes as we did. So yeah, it won't be back sadly. Don't bring it up to Greg Grumberg. He'll start crying.
You'll just have to make do with us.
Yeah. And then over there.
Yeah,
No, I thought was it you? Did you? He was raising it for you? He's your hand raiser? He's like, I'll raise it for you.
Is he your hype
Making
man?
those lightsabers.
Yeah, boy.
the question I had was, I just sat for a while listening to Silent Bob talk.
Yeah.
And so
I do that every day. It's fucked up.
in this new world of like geeks are like, we're in charge now. Wouldn't it be great to see a Silent Bob and James Silent Bob come back or like a cameo or something?
I agree with you.
Like, it was so adventurous. So like,
Yes.
I would think that'd be awesome.
I was going to try to make a joke of it, but I'll just put it on Front Street. In January, we start shooting Jane Silent Bob Reboot, which is a sequel to Jane Silent Bob Take One. So January, our office opens up. Probably by February 1st, we're rolling and stuff. Louisiana, that's where we're going to shoot the movie. It's good. I like it very much, but I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, so of course I would like it. But it's funny. It's very, very funny. That much I can probably say.
He says too much about that. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully it'll be good. Ladies and gentlemen, have you had a good time this evening? Yes. I know it's not the same exact audience as the audience we had last time we did this, but last time we did this, like we went 2.5 hours, and by the end of it, I was like, this is the move, man. Like instead of us shooting the show at home, like let's just do it there. It feels
All week,
fun.
every week.
Yeah, and you get to like shoot a long show and then cut it up into segments to put it up online and stuff. So we decided to try doing it here on a regular basis. And you guys tonight just made it for real when you sold the place out, like in a day, 2 days or something like that. So, and then the new one went up on sale and people started buying that up. It looks like that's going to sell out as well. So I love doing it. It feels like it's less performance oriented for me. Like, when I do Babylon, I'm like, let's put on a fucking show and shit like that. This feels like we're doing the show that we would normally do at home, but with an audience participating. And it actually helps drive the content forward because we find out shit that other people want to talk about. If he hadn't talked about the writer thing, like we wouldn't have got to that other space. Or what was the other thing you just talked about?
Favorite
question.
movie scene.
About favorite movie scene. That was fucking beautiful, man. So I wouldn't have thought to ask him that. So I'm glad somebody with brains was here to ask him that. So I've enjoyed doing this show for the last 2 weeks here, and we're gonna keep going, man. You guys have made it a real welcome place for us. It's fun to sit around and talk about being with you. That's all the time we got for this week, man. For Fat Man, I'm Batman. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Mark Bernardin.
Tune in next week, same fat time, same fat channel, Smodcast.com or
YouTube.com/Kevin Smith.
May the force be with you, folks. Good night, scum and villainy.
Peace.